Kashyyyk. Greetings, I am Tad Larkin, the Lore Master of Manda-LORE, and today I'll be digging through the archives to elaborate on the clone commandos of Delta Squad. Delta Squad was a designated unit of clone commandos, operating within the Special Operations Brigade of the Grand Army of the Republic during the Clone Wars. Consisting of Sergeant RC-1138 Boss, Demolitions Specialist RC-1262 Scorch, Slicer RC-1140 Fixer, and Marksman RC-1207 Sev, the clones of Delta Squad were born 32 years before the Battle of Yavin, on the rain-soaked world of Commando. Though they were genetic replicas of the Mandalorian bounty hunter Jango Fett, their genome was altered by the Kaminoans to make them age at twice the rate of normal humans, and be more susceptible to orders. However, they still maintained more independence than the standard rank-and-file clone troopers. As young cadets, the future members of Delta Squad were not subject to the same flash training programs that the standard clone cadets were, and instead trained under the brutal Sergeant Wallen Vau. A Mandalorian himself, Vau had gained a reputation among the other Koi Valdar training sergeants of being too harsh, where it was his philosophy that if he pushed his cadets as hard as he could, it would increase their survivability and combat effectiveness, which proved correct. Boss ended up being Wallen Vau's most successful trainee, constantly scoring high marks in weapons and tactics training, and even breaking Vau's arm during a melee exercise. And for all of his effort, he was given the rank of sergeant and assigned leader of Delta Squad.
Let's show him some real firepower.
Fixer naturally gravitated towards the more technical aspects of the training, and became one of the best slicers in the GAR, so much so that Vau had the data terminals removed from Fixer's dormitory, for fear that he would hack into the Topoka City mainframe during periods of boredom.
Delta 4-0, all set.
Though he had an uncanny sense of humor that Vau found distasteful at times, Scorch was proficient in making, arming, and disarming explosive ordnance, and earned his nickname after accidentally singeing off both his and Vau's eyebrows.
Was red green or red green red?
Last but not least, Sev held a special reverence for Vau, as he appreciated that he was only looking out for his cadets and wanted to see them survive this war. So, Sev worked to the point of daily exhaustion to impress his training sergeant, and his hard work paid off, earning him a spot in Delta Squad.
My trigger finger is getting itchy. When do I get to kill something again?
Equipped with the advanced Blastech DC-17 interchangeable weapon system and the sturdy Katarn-class armor, Delta Squad was ready for anything that the enemy could throw at them. Like many first-generation clones in the GAR, Delta Squad's first deployment was to the Battle of Geonosis in 22 BBY, although they were not transported to the battle as a unit and were deployed separately. Advised by Clone Advisor CC01/425 as they would be for many of their missions, Delta Squad's first directive on Geonosis was to regroup, and as Boss navigated the battlefield, he eventually linked up with Scorch, Fixer, and Sev. Once a full squad again, Delta Squad moved to their next objective: find and eliminate Sun Fac, an upper-caste Geonosian second in command to Archduke Poggle the Lesser. And, deep behind enemy lines, they found and eliminated their target before he could escape. While Delta Squad was hunting for Sun Fac, Theta Squad attempted to take out a droid foundry. However, they were overwhelmed, leaving RC-1136 Darman as the only survivor from his squad, and he would later go on to join Omega Squad. Delta was soon retasked to take out the droid foundry, following their assassination of Sun Fac, and where Theta Squad failed, Delta Squad succeeded. After their exfiltration from the now sabotaged droid foundry, Delta Squad's final task was to board a crashed Lucrehulk core ship and retrieve its launch codes to prevent other core ships from launching and escaping the battle, which was now turning into a rout for the Confederacy of Independent Systems. Having fought their way to the core ship and briefly splitting up to hit the core ship's major systems, Delta Squad fought their way to the bridge, retrieved the launch codes, and were exfilled by an LAAT before the core ship's critical systems failed and it exploded. Though Delta Squad was successful in their missions, not all of the Commando squads deployed to Geonosis were so lucky, as a staggering 4,982 clone commandos never made it off the planet alive. Following the battle, Delta Squad was put on cooldown on the Acclamator assault ship, the RAS Prosecutor, before being transferred elsewhere. 367 days after the Battle of Geonosis, the RAS Prosecutor was located in the Chaikin sector after it had disappeared during a tour of duty in the Corellian sector, and Delta Squad was deployed to the derelict ship to find out exactly what happened to it. Like with Geonosis, the 4 commandos inserted separately, with the intent of linking up once on board, and Boss himself entered through one of the Prosecutor's starboard torpedo tubes. They found that the ship was crawling with Trandoshan slavers, and after retrieving flight recorder data from several data cores, Boss, Fixer, and Sev linked up and made their way to the detention block to rescue Scorch, who was being held there by the Trandos. Once reunited, Delta Squad fought their way to the bridge to destroy a jamming device keeping the Prosecutor from broadcasting. There, they found that the Trandoshans were salvaging the ship to sell to the CIS in exchange for battle droids. After fighting their way to one of the hangar bays and destroying the Trandoshans' transport, a Lucrehulk battleship entered the system, and Delta quickly sealed off the other 2 hangar bays from waves of battle droids, utilizing booby traps and even an ATTE. Once all the hangar bays were sealed, the Lucrehulk started pounding the Prosecutor with turbo laser fire. So, Delta Squad fought their way to the nearest turbo laser battery to assist the RAS Arrestor, which had arrived following their distress signal, in destroying the CIS battleship, which they did. To exfiltrate the Prosecutor, Delta had to hijack a CIS shuttlecraft, and were nearing friendly space when they intercepted a distress signal originating from the intersection of the Corellian Run and the Perlemian trade route, and they answered the call. Delta Squad proceeded to rescue Omega Squad, who were on a mission to intercept and detain suspected separatists that went Chebs up, and were now floating in a dead ship with limited oxygen, no gravity, and another separatist vessel closing in on their location. They were successful, and extraction was aided by RAS Fearless under Jedi General Etain Termukin. Now, Delta and Omega were quite different, as Delta had been intact and trained by Wallen Vow, while Omega was formed from commandos who lost their squads during the Battle of Geonosis and were, except for RC-3222 Aten, trained by Cal Skirata, a rival training sergeant. Aten and Sev had it out for one another, because Aten hated Vow, because he was very cruel to him, and Sev, on the other hand, revered Vow, and held him in the highest regard. For all of their petty differences, they would have to put them aside, as Delta Squad, Omega Squad, and Cal Skirata's recalcitrant Null-class Advanced Recon Commandos would be working together, along with their former training sergeants, now working as advisors to the GAR, to take down a separatist terrorist cell, operating in the heart of Galactic City on Coruscant. Delta, Omega, and the Nulls worked closely with the Coruscant Security Force in plainclothes operations to get closer to the suspected terrorists, and discovered that there was a traitor in Republic logistics. And from there, Skirata met undercover with the terrorist leader about an explosive ordnance drop. With confirmation secured, they were able to lure the terrorists to a produce distribution warehouse and took them out accordingly, completing their mission. The 2 commando squads, the Nulls, CSF, and the former training sergeants, had all gained a healthy respect for one another during this operation, and celebrated before Delta Squad was shipped out to the mid-rim world of Skooma. Day 475, 16 months into the Clone Wars, Delta Squad was deployed to the banking clan purse world of Mygeeto to assist in preparations for the 21st Nova Corps' assault, and after completing their objective, they ended up participating in an unexpected secondary objective. Wallen Vow was also on Mygeeto, and and Delta Squad assisted him in robbing the Dressian Coilish Merchant Bank, where Vao's aristocratic parents had their safety deposit boxes stored, and with the Commando's help, Vao reclaimed his inheritance that was denied to him. Not everything went smoothly though, and they had to fight their way through waves of security droids to make it out with the loot, and unfortunately, Wall and Vao fell down a crevasse and demanded that they leave him. So they did, but called Scarada to let him know where Vao was, so he and Ordo could extract him later. Delta Squad's next mission came directly from Supreme Chancellor Palpatine himself, and their objective was to locate and capture the former Kaminoan geneticist Kashyyyk, who, intel suggested, had defected to the CIS. Their investigation led them to a host of aquatic worlds, including Vainai, Aquaris, Napdu, Dasucha 3, Bog 4, and finally Doruma, where they donned scuba trooper armor to infiltrate Kashyyy's underwater lab. However, they didn't find Kashyyyk there, as Cal Scarada and Wallen Vao had beaten them to her, and they took the Kaminoan geneticist to their hideout on Manda-LORE, where they attempted to force her to reveal the secrets to stopping the clone's accelerated aging. You see, as Cal Scarada continued to aid the Republic Special Operations Brigade, he became increasingly worried about the future of the clones after the war was over. So, with Vao's fortune and other funds obtained questionably, he set about trying to build a place where clones could come if they desired to leave the GAR and live a full and normal life. Kashyyyk, not being entirely happy with being kidnapped and forced to work at Blaster Point, chose a different path and took her own life, which Scarada wasn't too happy about, but luckily he still had her years of research. In turn, Cal gave Delta Squad Kashyyy's head to present to Jedi General Arlegan Zay, head of Republic Spec Ops Brigade, so that their mission wasn't a complete failure. Day 970, around 2 years and 7 months into the war, Delta Squad would work with Omega yet again. This time on the mid-rim world of Harugab, where the Republic was struggling to regain control of the world from pro-separatist insurgents in the wake of their leader being assassinated. During their tour on Harugab, while Delta Squad was eating lunch on one occasion, the Republic Forward HQ came under attack by missile fire, and after surviving this, they assisted Omega Squad in clearing the building that the missiles came from of rebels. Day 1070, nearly 3 years after Geonosis, Delta Squad was deployed to the Wookiee homeworld of Kashyyyk in the Mid-Rim to investigate recent aggression against the Wookiees by CIS-backed Trandoshan slavers and to free Tarful, chieftain of the capital city of Kashyyyk, from captivity. However, Delta Squad wouldn't be operating completely alone on Kashyyyk, as both Jedi General Etain Termukin, who was in the process of leaving the Jedi Order, and Anaka, Cal Scarada's Wookiee friend, would accompany and assist them. After infiltrating the Trandoshan slaver camp and freeing Tarful, Delta Squad found that the Trandos weren't just backed by the CIS, but were spearheading a whole CIS invasion, and they even caught sight of General Grievous before he escaped in his starfighter, leaving the Commandos to contend with Magna Guards. While Tarful was transported back to Coruscant to lobby for aid to his world, Delta Squad continued to work with Etain, Anaka, and the Wookiee resistance against the CIS in Kashyyyk, going as far as to blowing up the city's main bridge to slow the Separatist advance. Following this, Delta Squad helped the Wookiees take back one of their massive Roshir trees. However, to do this, they would need to take out a CIS Recusant-class light carrier hovering over it, and Delta Squad would have to split up and each man a missile turret. Fighting their way up the tree to each of the missile turrets, Sev, Fixer, Scorch, and finally Boss mounted their turrets and pounded the light cruiser until its shields failed and it was brought down. Delta Squad wasn't able to revel in their victory for long, however, as it could be heard on their comm units that Sev was overwhelmed by enemies, and his transmission was cut out, prompting the 3 commandos to attempt a rescue. However, High Command had other plans.
Boss, I've got a problem here.
Sev, where are you?
Multiple hospitals.
Lost his signal, boss.
We'll find it again, damn it. Squad, regroup. We're going after Sev.
Negative, 3-8. New orders came through from the Jedi Generals. Clear the area. Evac now.
I don't care if they came from Master Yoda himself.
As a matter of fact, they did, soldier. Now get your squad out of there.
Both Advisor CC01/425 and Quinlan Voss's forward air controller ordered the commandos to cease looking for Sev and extract immediately, and the remnants of Delta Squad reluctantly followed their orders. On the LAAT ride out of Kashyyyk, it was revealed to Boss, Scorch, and Fixer that their operations had laid the groundwork for Jedi General Yoda and the 41st Elite Corps' counter-invasion of Kashyyyk, and it was on Yoda's orders that they extract immediately. It wasn't too long after this that Supreme Chancellor Palpatine, after being discovered as a Sith Lord and surviving a duel with Mace Windu, invoked Contingency Order 66 to all clone commanders across the galaxy, and subsequently their troopers, who gunned down their Jedi generals. In the wake of this, Palpatine crowned himself Emperor and enacted a new order, turning the 25,000-year-old Galactic Republic into a galactic empire. With this, sweeping changes were made to the former Republic Special Operations Brigade, and Delta Squad, now given a generic number designation, along with the rest of the commando squads from Arca Company, would now be a branch of the 501st Legion, under the command of Darth Vader. They were given new armor to replace their personalized Katarn armor, and a new squad mate to replace Sev, and Scorch, Boss, and Fixer never bothered to learn his number or even give him a nickname, because in their minds, they were someday going to rescue Sev and be a full squad again. This is sadly where our account of Delta Squad ends, and it is still unknown whether they followed in the footsteps of their Omega Squad comrades and deserted the Empire to Manda-LORE, or remained in Imperial service to hunt down fugitive Jedi during the Great Jedi Purge. As for Sev, his fate remains unknown as well, for Wallen Val went searching for him on Kashyyyk and his search turned up nothing. Whether he was eventually reunited with his brothers remains a mystery. Some have hypothesized that Sev escaped Separatist captivity and survived in the jungle for years before being found by the Rebel Alliance and helping train the Rebel Commandos. However, this is still speculation. This transmission was commissioned by Trav. If you have any suggestions for future transmissions, don't be afraid to drop a comment. Special thanks to my patrons, Wildcat144, The Grand Pope, Zexend, JTrips1997, David Miller, AJ Can't Think of a Good Pun Right Now, Dave the Grave, Hugo Novotny, Zim the Despot, Matt Patton, Witten, and Trav. If you'd like to support this channel, please visit my Patreon to find out how. Link is in the description. In the meantime, keep your comm channels open for future transmissions, and don't forget to subscribe. Tad Larkin, out.